Okay, so I want to talk to you about something touchy subject, but it's crab mentality. Okay, so
Oh. Which most people think it's a cultural, but not really.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll find out. But I mean, I've definitely, I guess I've seen it here in the sense of people not wanting to allow somebody to be successful or not praising someone for being successful. Instead of they gossip about that person, or they might say something to the effect of, "Oh, they'll never gonna make it," that kind of a thing.
Yeah, so crab mentality, or what we call it, Talangka mentality. Talangka is a Tagalog word for crab. So that basically came from this talangka or crab where they're in one bucket, and then every time one crab tries to get out, what the others do, they pull them down. So that's what really is, and what really is all about is or what do I say it.
Well, it's more open here because it seems to be more woven into the culture.
Yeah. um
Maybe that's not true. Maybe, but that's just kind of my perspective from the outside because it's not that crab mentality isn't all over the world, because it is, but I see it here.
it is, because crab mentality is, it happens, I would say, when there's a scarcity. So like you were saying, it's just like it's not only a Filipino thing. So it does happen every time there's a scarcity. And when do you see that happening, or what's the sign that something like that is happening? That's when people starts to, like you were saying, when people starts to move up, getting better, people will start to gossip. It's their way of hiding that they're trying to pull someone up. Instead of them saying right to the person, they will gossip and say something like, "Oh, who do you think you are?" It's just like, "You're better than us," It's just like, "Oh, that person, she only went overseas, and now out of the blue, she thinks better than us," or that, "Oh, she just got promoted, and out of the blue, her head is
Yeah, right.
inflated," and stuff like that. And it almost connotates to a place of envy, but we hide it, I think, by saying that's by gossiping or calling it as crab mentality. But then again, it really isn't. It is just the protecting oneself by making sure that you stay as a whole, because everything, there's a shortage of everything, I
Right.
think,
So it's when the pie feels too small, kind of an idea. So that's where that comes from.
Correct. When every time there's a scarcity, that could happen. Just like we've seen it. That's why we exactly called it the crab mentality, and it's not really the something bad. It is because, plain and simple, every time
Right.
there's a scarcity,
Right.
that's happened.
Because
We
there,
just gave it a name ourselves as crab mentality or talangka mentality.
right. But and so what you find is that inside the community there is less opportunity, there's less resources, there are, and because of those resources being tight, it's normal for, I don't know if it's normal, but it just seems like what
Someone felt
happens is
like they're
that
left
they're being
behind,
left behind, or they're being impacted by
or
that
you're moving
person
up in their own expense.
at their expense.
Yeah, correct. And it happens more in a tight community, or in a place wherein that certain individual is, it could be your neighbor, it could be your sister, your brother, but that usually happens in a tight community. When I say that, is because we celebrate Pacquiao, no big deal. Or that we celebrate Ayala. I was like, yes, go Ayala, go Pacquiao, that
Right.
kind of thing.
But I think So,
right?
yeah, I mean, I think, because I think I've seen this even with you. So, because like,
Oh,
well, you know, if you don't want to tell people that you have a nice BYD car, or you don't want to really tell people that you have a really nice house or a two-bedroom house with a pool, you tend to
downplay.
downplay that.
Yeah, well, I think again it's because that's the community or that's the environment where I grew up. It doesn't matter how many years I've been gone. That's my Filipino trait. Whether I like it or not, and do I appreciate it? I do. Why? Because of that mentality, we're still a tight community trying to help each other no matter what. And you've seen that we try to help each other no matter what, to a point wherein there's nothing left for us. But going back to what you're saying, that I downplay it, yes, a great example is when I was at work in the US, sometimes on our lunch break or on our breaks, especially during the time when gas prices or rice went up. We've seen it happens many, many times. So we will start thinking it's just like, oh my God, I have to spend so much gas on my car. I was like, well, I do too. From $50 to now I have to spend over
Right,
$100.
to
And I was
fill the
like,
tank, yeah.
so yeah, to fill the tank. And everyone starts, oh, what do you drive? It's like, oh, I drive a Ford truck. What do you drive? Oh, I buy a Tesla. So sorry guys, it's like I don't have to pay gas. So when it's my turn to say what do I drive, what do I say? Do I say the brand? No, obviously not. What I'm gonna say that, well, I drive a small
That's because
two-seater
she
car
had a
and it's
convertible
red.
Mercedes and she didn't want to sound like she was bragging that she had a
Yeah,
really nice car.
yeah, because in my mind, they would think that I'm bragging. We're in for them. It's just easy for them to just say as it is, and for me, I try to downplay it. It's the same thing our house. A great example is when people say that that I have a big house. What do I say? It's not really. I mean,
Right.
in reality, it's not a very, very big house. It's not a mansion, but it's just enough for me and my husband. But for other
It's
people,
big here in the sense it's got a 750 square meters of land that's all fenced in and it's got a pool and so it actually, the square meters is
some might think as,
relatively large for a two-bedroom. So when people go by, they go, "Oh my God, you're building a mansion, you're building a big house." And for us,
no.
1,400 square feet is not that big. But here in the Philippines, it's a different story.
I think it's a normal size in the U.S.
Yeah.
Usually, homes over there is 2 to 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I downplay it when I was asked, it's like, well, how many bedrooms is your house? And they told because it looks so big. Because I blog, so I said, well, my house is just a 1 bedroom, and then one of my friends said, well, yeah, 1 bedroom, but maybe it's a huge bedroom. So then when my friend come over and actually visited me and decide, she said, so how many bedrooms you have is this house? Because it doesn't look like 1 bedroom like you said yesterday. And I said, well, it's actually 2 bedrooms. And she said, you said 1 bedroom yesterday. Now you're saying it's 2 bedrooms. So which is which? But then again, that's coming from how I raised, the environment I grew up. It's like it's easier to downplay sometimes because you don't want to stood out, because now you're not going to be relatable. All that they might think you are bragging, or they might think that, oh, just because you went to the United States, you think you're better than everyone else now.
Hmm.
That's the kind of
But
crowd
that is a
mentality.
crowd
There's a crowd
mentality. Yeah,
mentality, you know.
you didn't, that I'm the one who built the house, I'm the one who paid for the house, versus
Yeah,
the facts are that
yeah,
you helped pay for the house. Your money went into the house as much as my money went into the house.
yeah,
But that's not how it's perceived, and
yeah.
that's the crab mentality.
Yeah, so instead of like celebrating that, we tend to look more on the negative side. But then again, on the other side, it's just that mentality of we have to be a community,
Right, 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 right.
kind of mindset. And that is like, it should be all the same, because as a community, we should be more of like a uniform kind of thing, instead of like sticking out, if that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's it will all go back to the mindset where it started, where it's all about scarcity, really, So I'll go back to what we were saying a while ago, that I think we have already climbed out of that, or we already balanced that, if you
Well,
may,
I
if the
think the
way
way
of
out,
saying it, or oh yeah, maybe the way out to that is when it's so easy for us to celebrate someone we don't know, like our athletes.
right,
Yeah,
and that's probably the flip side of the coin,
yeah,
is where you have someone like Pacquiao or that tennis player who's
Ayala,
doing really well,
correct.
or there was a male gymnast who was doing really well from the Philippines,
Yeah, I
and
forgot what's his
yeah.
name. Yeah,
But when
yeah,
you see
yeah.
that
I'm
happening,
sorry.
you want to celebrate that because
Doesn't
it
directly
it
affect.
doesn't directly affect that
Correct.
person.
It's on a bigger
It's on a
scale.
bigger scale, and so
Yes.
they become more of everybody's champion. So
Yes.
everybody can celebrate it. It's not something that affects you. It's going to come out of your pocket.
And again, this is so much as the Filipinos. We take pride. We take pride of the fact that we're Filipinos. So then, when we have our athletes or anybody who's carrying that flag because we succeeded, and even if it's not, we still cheer for them
Yeah.
because that's our pride. That's the Filipino pride. So that counterbalance the negative connotation of the crowd mentality, I
Right.
think. Yeah,
Well, the
and
other thing I think that is starting to maybe pull out of it is instead of instead of being envious, you see this sense of mentorship or this sense of desire to help each other succeed. And I was, I think your brother is a good example of that because there you have a nephew who really wants to go to school and wants to do something with his life, but he don't necessarily have the means to do that. But your brother is providing that means so that he can be successful, and yet he's
that's a
already
great way of, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
and he's already raised two daughters who are very successful,
Yeah, definitely.
and so that's celebrating, and instead of being envious and trying to pull down, and I think
The,
that's a great way to getting out of that crab mentality.
definitely. And not only that, I mean, whenever there's a big project that needs funding, so that perceived or thought of as bragging, having a big house that stands out on everybody else, that will flip it, because now that person who is perceived that way is become the person that you can bring the letter to for solicitation, right? Because now the person is being seen as someone who can actually help a project to be successful. It could
Yeah,
be a community project, it could be a school project. A great example is when I was growing up. When because obviously sometimes again there's a scarcity on a lot of things here in the Philippines, and that says so much about it. But a great example is when I was going to school in high school, we have a project that we need to fund. Well, what's the first thing that comes to mind? You look around you in your community. Oh, you see a big house. What do? Are you gonna go and solicit from the small house or the big house that stands out? Which we don't usually do, right? You're gonna go to that.
right.
So with that being said, we already climb out because we admire that, we celebrate that, we go to the person who's like, hey, you are so blessed, is our word that we usually use. It's like, you are so blessed, you don't mind sharing a little bit of your blessings.
Blessings.
And guess what? They don't hesitate. You will go to a house and I guarantee you they will give something no matter what. You will never leave that house empty
Empty-handed.
pocket. That
Yeah.
says so much about the Filipinos.
Right.
That we help each other. That's, I don't know if you still call it the other side of the coin of that crab mentality, really.
Yeah, maybe to a degree because on the I don't know, this is a little bit off subject, but on the same token, when you're the person who is always
Who can
being
share?
solicited, and the soliciting letter, that's something I never experienced before. So somebody will come by, they'll have
A
an
pledge or
envelope,
whatever.
they'll have an envelope, And they'll say, I have an envelope for a letter for you. And you know right away that that means that they're asking money for some sort of a project or something like that.
Hey, a great example of that. It's just a great example of that is like a politician
Oh,
asking for help kind
right,
of way.
right, yeah,
That this practically
sure.
is the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that or they had a big
Event.
event here at the, what was that, the celebration or
Fiesta.
a fiesta they had, and some guy came
Barangay
here and
fiesta.
they knew that we were here, they knew that, maybe we have money, and so of course they asked us for money. But then you're always somebody coming by with a letter of solicitation because they think that we're rich, and that type of a thing.
Yeah, and I think I can say it that we already that's the other side of that crab mentality is they look up to you, because you're able to help, that you're able to share something. So I really think that we have already climbed out of that, and the fact that we are able to celebrate a lot of the Filipinos who carry our flag, we celebrate them really, really well.
Because the Filipinos win is a win for all if you look at it
Yeah.
the right way, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's easy to see it. Wherein, like I said, if it doesn't directly affect you, it's like it's easier to do so. Wherein to celebrate for that person, but if it's close to you, you felt like they are taking something away from
Taking
you
it out of your
because of the
pocket.
very reason of the scarcity. But I really think that being away for 18 years or more, because I started getting out of the country when I was 21, 22. So there's a lot of Western influence already. And I'm talking on a bigger scale, it's just not me. There's a lot of people that gets out of the country for the very reason of, again, scarcity.
And they're called overseas
Overseas
workers,
workers.
and they are a part of why you see all the cars and everybody has a cell
Big
phone and
homes,
all these types of things that you're
yes.
starting to see now is because
Yeah.
overseas workers are sending money home and they are becoming successful in the best way that they can, and they help the families here to live a better life.
Yeah, and I really think we're slowly climbing out of that on a more positive way versus the way it was seen before, because you can hear people say, just like, oh, look at these people, just like their mom went overseas, and look, all their kids were able to finish college for the very reason. That's
Right.
just like, they admire that now,
Yeah.
versus of saying it's just like, before it could be seen like, oh, their kids only were able to finish college because of their mom, who's just like cleaning houses. Who do they think they are? That's not what it is anymore. So I think we're slowly
Right.
climbing out. That's another way
Right.
of us
Right.
climbing out of that
Sure.
bucket already.
Sure,
Yeah.
because it used to be when it was scarcity, that meant that if if we're all competing for the same resources and for all the same opportunities, and one person is getting more of those opportunities and more of those resources,
Yeah.
then they start to want to pull that person down because it affects the whole.
That's
And
true.
now they're starting to come to a different place to where they're seeing your success is actually our success.
Yes, because what happens now is, before it really is very hard to be able to go overseas. But now it's easier because of the very person who went overseas.
Yeah.
So how that works is that this person who can go overseas, guess what? They have a better, or they are more able to help a neighbor who also
Right.
went to go overseas. What they gonna do? They borrow money. Maybe the person is gonna say, so like, hey, can I borrow money so my daughters can also go overseas? I mean, they might charge interest or whatever, but that might be, but that is easier now to do so compared to the old ways before, wherein if you don't have a piece of land with a title, that you will be able to pawn it to a neighbor who is able to
Help you, like if you
help
wanted to
you.
go to
Yeah.
Hong Kong and be a nanny, and you need resources to get a flight, to
Correct.
pay the company that will help connect you with the job overseas, you have to have money to do those things.
Correct. Or maybe you will pawn that land title to the bank. I did that myself, and there's no shame of that because that time there's not a lot of people in my community where I can go to and ask for help. So now you
Yeah.
can, because probably if you're gonna pawn that land piece of land title to that person, you're not gonna pay interest, but you do on a bank. So now
Right.
that is more possible. You see more people
Right,
now
right.
here. Here in our community alone, there's a lot of overseas. And when I'm talking about overseas, we're not only talking about Filipinos going to Hong Kong. We also have, I'll speak for what I know, the our immediate is a lot of my classmates are now like working in Singapore as managers of a big establishment, you know it, or you name it, or they're in London as nurses or accountants or whatever that might be. So now, even though the opportunity is not in the Philippines, it's just the opportunities now is a little bit more attainable because of the people who started going out of the country. So now, if you really look at it as a whole, we're already in a place wherein we're trying to help each other. There
To a
could,
degree, I mean,
yes,
there's still
but
this,
obviously
because there's
you can't
still,
help it.
so if you're in the barangay here, there's less resources, there's more scarcity here, and so you're going to still see that crab mentality here.
And this is funny. I think the scarcity now is not more on the, maybe it's still on the opportunity and a certain level, but now I kind of hear more like the crab mentality now is like where you see it's like, oh, there's this free whatever, I forget what they call it. It's called God, sorry, brain fart. Like when ayuda, there you go, ayuda. When there's ayuda, um some people might get offended because now they're looking at the community as you don't need it because, and you don't need it because you are perceived as able to buy these ones. Wherein for that person who being taught as who has money might feel like, but wait a minute, I also pay taxes. I deserve even just a little bit too. I also belong in the barangays. And then that's the gossip, the crab mentality probably comes across because, again, that ayuda is very limited. It's very limited only to a certain
Sure.
people.
Well,
So,
we just heard recently there are people here that don't have food, and
yeah.
so there are people who, giving them a sack of rice means everything to them.
Of course, yes, there's still
So
that.
there's
Yeah,
still scarcity here, and
there
that's
is.
why it's still that crab mentality exists because it's always been the community that is vying for those resources. But now you kind of start to see that there is just a desire for families to have their children,
Do well.
go through college and be successful and maybe go overseas and find a good job and then contribute back to the family.
That is true. With that being said, once family have succeeded, it's just it's the Filipino way. We are always a very much extended family. So the expectation is that, unfortunately, there is an expectation, and this is going to be another subject that we're going to talk about later on. It's just that when you do so well, you're expected to
Help.
help everybody
And
else
and
in
it's
the
weird
family
because
or immediate family.
yeah, especially the immediate family, because that's not always true, in especially where I come from, where you know I don't expect my kids to take care of me when I get older. I don't expect if my son does well, I don't expect him to make sure that I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I still have my own mentality of saying I've got to take care of myself. I got to prepare for my future. I got to prepare for my retirement. Those are things that I have to do for myself. But that's very different in the Filipino
That is very
culture.
true. But there's more to it why that is seen as expectation. And guess what, guys? if you are not our subscriber yet, please subscribe because we're going to be talking about more
Yeah, we'll talk about that in another
depthly
video. Yeah,
and in another
yeah,
video.
yeah.
But I'll plug in real quick, please. If you're not our subscriber yet,
Yeah.
please like and share this video, and please subscribe.
Two
And
cups, one culture.
thank you. Anything else that you wanna?
No, that pretty much wraps it up, I think,
Yeah,
for,
you have a
yeah,
better understanding
yeah.
now, and I really hope so that we have shed a little bit of more understanding about these subjects for our viewers, and
If we haven't confused you.
I hope so. Huh? Sometimes, yeah, yeah. But anyways, um, for some of you guys, for Filipinos who are watching us right now, have you ever felt like someone was trying to pull you down when you were starting
To succeed.
to succeed, be it in your career or going out of the country or whatever that might be, or have you caught yourself doing it? I mean,
Be honest.
it's hard to be honest, right? It's hard to be honest, and it's hard sometimes to just say it out loud. But like I said, it's just something that happens because of the short the scarcity or
That you
the
grew up
very
with.
limited opportunity. We would like to hear those guys,
Put it in the
but
comments.
yeah, in the comments. And like always, thank you guys for always watching. I greatly appreciate it. Tune in for our next podcast. It's gonna be really interesting. Like always, thank you. You have
Thank
a great
you.
day. God
See you
bless.
guys.
Bye.